Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start this video with a story about a power-tripping pizza manager who lived for nitpicking her staff until a new server served her a dish of karma. Extra petty. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Manager humiliates me over table setup, so I served her a slice of payback. I'm a student and I took some time off to focus on my studies. I found myself in a pinch and needed some cash, so I looked for a quick serving job close to my apartment. I found one at a pretty low-volume mom-and-pop pizza place. The manager was your typical bully who liked to let everyone know she was the one in charge and loved to get on someone's case if they didn't put the pepper shaker back on the table in the right position. Any small thing she had the opportunity to reprimand someone for, she took it. She also loved to humiliate people. I was new, and instantly the staff really seemed to like me. I was overall usually in a good mood and had a lot of inside jokes with most of the staff. The checks, tabs for the tables, were handwritten, so I like to abbreviate things to make the process quicker. If things were on one check, I didn't feel the need to separate seats as they were going on one check anyway, so why should it matter? As the checks are handwritten, the cashier was the manager, and they were in charge of ringing up the receipts and totals of the checks on the one register. I had a table of 3 on one check, so I wrote it on one piece of paper, all under one seat. She calls me over loudly in front of the whole staff to embarrass me. I'll be me, she will be EL for entitled loser. EL, hey OP, what have I told you about separate seats? Me, oh, they're on one check. EL, okay, well, all seats need to be separate. Me, even if they're on one check, seems kind of like a waste of time since it's handwritten and all. EL, yes, I need to know, each seat separate. It's not that difficult. So for the rest of the day, she would patronize me and clap each time I would separate every 2-top table I had. At the end of one shift, a cook could see how crappy she was treating me. He pulled me in the back and said, "Hey, I think you did a great job today. You killed it." He was so genuine, I left the back smiling. 10 minutes later, she told me she needed to talk to me. I was assuming she was going to tell me I did a great job separating checks. Nope, she said the tables look like crap and I need to put the napkins on the right side of the tables, not the left. I had it. The next day, I was the closing server. I was alone, just me, her, and the kitchen. Super slow night. Then we had a large party come in. It was 14 people. No problem. The entire restaurant was empty, and I was the only server. I got their orders, then took a seat. As they were eating, I took my sweet time separating each single order by hand. I made sure to use my very best handwriting, spelling out each individual word. No shorthand tonight. 20 minutes after close, they still hadn't asked for their checks. I was in no rush that night, but my manager was. EO, can I get their checks, please? I'm ready to go. Me, sure, no problem. I approached the table. Hey guys, we're wrapping up. No rush, but I have your checks. I separated them all. Are you all separate or on one? Table. Oh, put us on one. Now at this point, I could have just stapled all 14 checks together and asked for the calculated total and asked the manager to simply type the total plus tax. But since she was so hell-bent on separate checks, I delivered 14 separate checks for her to calculate up herself. EL, all separate? Seriously? Me, yep. It took her about 5 minutes to calculate it. After gathering them up, I add the separate totals, staple them, and circle the total. I hand the check over and let them hang out for another 15 minutes before handing over a payment. I go and swipe the card and tell them to have a good night. The manager/cashier is in charge of closing out the final payments. She sees it's on one check. EL, that was on one check? Seriously? Me, I know, they changed their mind. It would have been so much easier for me to have just put it on one piece of paper, huh? The death glare she gave me was priceless. I cleaned the table off with a crap-eating grin on my face. I quit 2 weeks later. Shove those separate checks up your butt, Catherine. Honestly, Catherine, and I fully appreciate the spelling here, by the way, had that one coming. You gave her exactly what she wanted, then made her regret ever wanting it in the first place. She made a whole dramatic show about separating checks when you literally had a system that was faster, easier, and caused 0 problems. But no, she needed her power trip. And our second story. Be the most obnoxious customer of the month? You'll just have to wait. I'm normally a friendly and helpful person towards customers. The store I work in is big, and it can be hard to find things if you're not familiar with the layout, so I really don't mind too much when someone comes and finds me several times in one visit to ask for help, provided they're not a total jerk about it. A few days ago, a couple came in. Anyone who's ever had a job involving customer service knows the type, very entitled, a little rude, and all too demanding. The first time the guy, we'll call him that guy, asked me for help, he was a little rude and not paying much attention. He called me ma'am, but I'm not a girl. But I didn't think much of it. I smiled and helped him find what he needed and went back to what I was doing. The couple were there for about an hour, not in any rush. The guy had a real knack for being a few feet away from the service counter with 2 to 3 people who were clearly doing nothing and looking around for the nearest employee who was clearly in the middle of something on the floor, then pulling us away from our tasks to ask really obvious and stupid questions. This was a little annoying, but once again, I was used to it, so I just went with it. Then that guy decided it was time to go. I was up front, busy searching for a missing item. That guy comes up with an armful of stuff. The cashier was busy helping someone finish paying with the rather confusing credit card machine, and behind him there was one more person with maybe 2 or 3 items. That guy took one look at the line, if you can even call it that, which would take maybe 2 minutes at most to get through, and decided he didn't want to wait. Keep in mind, he'd been there for an hour, and his wife was nowhere in sight. He turned to me and loudly announced, so the other customers and cashier could hear, "Hey, I have somewhere I need to be, and I don't have time to wait. I need another checker." I think he was assuming that I would just jump on the other register so he could bypass the line. For a brief moment, I was a little taken aback, but I quickly covered it up with a smile. "Okay," I told him. "I'll go see if I can find someone." The other cashier for that shift was on lunch break, and I knew the manager, the only other person who was allowed to help out if the line got bad and the second cashier wasn't available, wouldn't want to deal with that guy anyway. I took the opportunity to leave the area. Later, I found out that immediately after I left, another employee happened to walk by, and that guy demanded that he too find another cashier. He ended up having to wait. What I especially appreciate is that you didn't even bother engaging in a power struggle. You just said, "Okay," and walked off like a legend. And our next story. Lady demands I serve her. So normally when I work, I'm used to wearing a 3-piece suit, especially when visiting a client. So last week I visited a client and made a decent buck doing that. I decided afterwards to take my parents out for dinner at a Greek restaurant. Well, it's a decent restaurant. It's by no means a 3-star fancy restaurant, so the waiting staff just wears a button-up shirt with the restaurant logo on the back. Huge eagle thing, not hard to miss. I didn't feel like changing clothes that much, so I just took off my suit jacket before going to the restaurant. So me and my parents had a nice dinner. Food's always good there. It was only until I got up to pay things started to get interesting. A group of 5 middle-aged ladies comes into the restaurant. I was talking with Mom and Dad a bit, but was already standing and looking a bit around so I could flag down a staff member. This restaurant's not wide, but very long, so for whatever reason, all staff was in the back. One of the middle-aged ladies walks up to me and taps me on the shoulder. Let's call her ML. "ML, excuse me, could you take my coat and take us to our table? We reserved under the name Middle-Aged Ladies." Me, "Sorry, but I don't work here. Someone will be with you shortly." ML, "Take us to our seats. You're clearly dressed as a waiter, so stop chatting with these people and do your job." I don't know how she thought that me wearing 2/3 of a suit was an indication that I worked there. Me, "Look, lady, I don't work here. These are a waistcoat and pants from a suit. I'm a customer here." By now, ML was getting annoyed, and she decided that the best course of action would be basically force her coat into my hands. I simply tossed her coat, her white coat, to the side onto the table where we'd just had dinner, right onto the dirty plates and a half bowl of tzatziki. ML was not happy about that. "ML, you idiot!" By now she was screaming, and all of the restaurant was tuning into the drama. "You just ruined my coat. I'm going to have you fired." Good luck with that. I'm my own boss. By now, Nikos, the owner of the restaurant, was coming, and he started talking to ML. She was fuming about her coat and how I should be fired, but Nikos remained calm and explained that I was a customer and that he could not fire me because I didn't work for him. By now, the 4 ladies who were with ML started to get really embarrassed, and no one even apologized to me. ML demanded that Nikos paid, but by then the other lady started dragging ML out of the restaurant. We were somewhere between flabbergasted and laughing until we were crying, and Nikos even comes to us and apologizes for what happened. I told him not to worry because we did get one hell of a laugh and story out of it. Nikos ends up bringing us ouzo on the house, the good private stuff, not the garbage you normally get, and I left a good tip because how great they handled it. And our last story. Neighbor thought she was buying my farm, woke up to a cell tower instead. So this happened about 20 years ago. I used to own a farm, nothing extravagant, just a few acres where we did some crops and had livestock. One day, Verizon reached out with an offer to build a cell tower on my land. At the time, I had already been considering selling the property, and this seemed like the perfect way to get some income while offloading the farm. The company also came to Karen. Their location was better suited, but they flatly refused and didn't want to see the terrible tower and considered it an eyesore. The deal was pretty sweet. Verizon needed a little piece of land for the tower, and they offered me $1,000 a month for 20 years. I was ready to move on, so I agreed to the deal. Now, the real drama starts with my neighbor Karen and her husband. They'd been eyeing my farm for a while, and while they weren't exactly the best neighbors, they kept trying to make offers on the land, but they weren't being polite about it. They would harass my family, make lowball offers, and try every trick in the book to convince me to sell. I had no interest in selling to them because of the way they acted. I eventually sold the farm to someone else, but kept a corner for myself when I sold the rest of the land for the tower, so we were getting $1,000 a month for the next 20 years for owning a tiny piece of land that was worth nothing. I did tell them that Verizon was coming to put up a tower on the land. Karen and her husband were under the impression that they were next in line to buy the property, so when I sold it, they felt completely blindsided. But they were thrilled to think they'd finally convinced me to sell when I mentioned that I was in talks with them to buy the property. I let them think they had a shot at it for a while. After I sold the land, I got a call from Verizon saying the tower construction was scheduled to begin. Just as construction was about to start, Karen called me in an absolute panic. She demanded to know what the hell was going on and why there was a tower being built on the property. She thought she'd secured the farm, but it was already sold, and Verizon was about to begin work. She threatened to sue me, screaming that I had no right to make this decision. I calmly told her that I had already sold the land and had made an agreement with Verizon long before she'd even thought she was in the running to buy it. I made it clear that there was nothing she could do about it. She didn't like that answer, but there was nothing she could do. I told her to go ahead and sue if she wanted, and I hung up. The tower construction continued, and Karen was powerless to stop it. The whole thing felt like a victory. She thought she'd won when she really thought she was about to buy my farm, but in reality, she ended up with nothing. Meanwhile, I secured a deal with Verizon, getting a reliable source of income for years. It was the perfect payoff to all the years of manipulation and drama she and her husband tried to pull on me. I'm sure Karen was furious, but after all the games she played, she never spoke to me again. I sold the farm to someone who would appreciate it, and I moved on with my life. Sometimes it's just satisfying to show people who think they're entitled to something that they're not. Oh my God, this is the most deliciously petty revenge story I've heard in a long time. The fact that you let them believe they were getting the farm just long enough for reality to smack them in the face when the Verizon trucks rolled in is next level savage. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.